flag of the United States flies before Parliament in Ottawa, Canada, in honor of a visitor from the United States. Tourists from the neighbor to the south are not unusual in Canada. Each year, tens of thousands of people from the United States cross the border. There are almost no restrictions on travel between these two countries, which have long enjoyed close friendship based on mutual interest and a common heritage of freedom. Mrs. Diefenbaker and the Prime Minister, himself a recent visitor to Washington, wait on the steps of the Parliament building to welcome a special visitor from the United States. President John F. Kennedy. The two families greet each other as old friends. It is as a friendly neighbor that Mr. Kennedy has come to Canada to discuss international problems which concern both countries. There is a standing ovation for the President of the United States by the members of Canada's Parliament, meeting in joint session to hear a major address by Mr. Kennedy.
I'm grateful for the generous remarks and kind sentiments of my country and myself, Mr. Prime Minister. We in the United States have an impression that this country is made up of descendants of the English and the French, but I was glad to hear some applause coming from the very back benches when you mentioned Ireland. I'm sure they're making progress forward. I feel at home also here because I number in my own state of Massachusetts many friends and former constituents who are of Canadian descent. Among the voters of Massachusetts who were born outside the United States, the largest group by far was born in Canada. Their vote is enough to determine the outcome of an election, even a presidential election. You can understand that having been elected President of the United States by less than 140,000 votes out of 60 million, that I am very conscious of these statistics. The Prime Minister was the first of the leaders from other lands who was invited to call upon me shortly after I entered the White House. And this is my first trip, and the first trip of my wife and myself outside of our country's borders. It is just and fitting and appropriate and traditional that I should come here to Canada, across a border that knows neither guns nor guerrillas. Geography has made us neighbors. History has made us friends. Economics has made us partners. And necessity has made us allies. Those whom nature has so joined together, let no man put asunder. What unites us is far greater than what divides us. For it is clear that no free nation can stand alone to meet the threat of those who make themselves our adversaries. That no free nation can retain any illusions about the nature of the threat, and that no free nation can remain indifferent to the steady erosion of freedom around the globe. To make this entire area more secure against aggression of all kinds, to defend it against the encroachment of international communism in this hemisphere, and to see our sister states fulfill their hopes and needs for economics and social reform and development are surely all challenges confronting your nation and deserving of your talents and resources as well as ours. The hemisphere is a family into which we were born, and we cannot turn our backs on it in time of trouble. Nor can we stand aside from its great adventure of development. I believe that all of the free members of the Organization of American States would be heartened and strengthened by any increase in your hemispheric role, your skills, your resources, your judicious perception at the council table, even when it differs from our own view, are all needed throughout the inter-American community. Your country and mine are partners in North American affairs. Can we not now become partners in inter-American affairs? Our NATO alliance is still, as it was when it was founded, the world's greatest bulwark of freedom. But the military balance of power has been changing. Enemy tactics and weaponry have been changing. We can stand still only at our peril. NATO force structures were originally devised to meet the threat of a massive conventional attack in a period of Western nuclear monopoly. Now, if we are to meet the defense requirements of the 1960s, the NATO countries must push forward simultaneously along two lines. First, we must strengthen the conventional capability of our alliance. Second, we must make certain that nuclear weapons will continue to be available for the defense of the entire treaty area, and that these weapons are at all times under close and flexible political control that meets the needs of all the NATO countries. If we in the Atlantic community can more closely coordinate our own economic policies, and certainly the OECD provides the framework if we but use it, and I hope that you will join as we are seeking to join to use it, then surely our potential economic resources are adequate to meet our responsibility. Consider, for example, the unsurpassed productivity of our farms. Less than 8% of the American working force is on our farms. Less than 11% of the Canadian working force is on yours. Fewer men on fewer acres than any nation on earth. But free men on free acres can produce here in North America all the food that a hungry world could use, while all the collective farms and forced labor of the communist system produce one shortage after another. Finally, let me say just a few words about the world in which we live. We should not misjudge the force of the challenge that we face, a force that is powerful as well as insidious, that inspires dedication as well as fear, that uses means we cannot adopt to achieve ends we cannot permit. Nor can we mistake the nature of the struggle. It is not for concessions or territory. It is not simply between different systems. It is an age-old battle for the survival of liberty itself. And our great advantage, and we must never forget it, is that the irresistible tide that began 500 years before the birth of Christ in ancient Greece is for freedom and against tyranny. And that is the wave of the future. And the iron hand of totalitarianism can ultimately neither seize it nor turn it back. In the words of Macaulay, a single breaker may recede, but the tide is coming in. If we can contain the powerful struggle of ideologies and reduce it to manageable proportions, we can proceed with the transcendent task of disciplining the nuclear weapons, which shadow our lives, and of finding a widened range of common enterprises between ourselves and those who live under communist rule. For in the end, we live on one planet, and we are part of one human family. And whatever the struggles that confront us, we must lose no chance to move forward towards a world of law and a world of disarmament. At the conference table, And in the minds of men, the free world's cause is strengthened because it is just. But it is strengthened even more by the dedicated efforts of free men and free nations. As the great parliamentarian Edmund Burke said, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. And that, in essence, is why I'm here today. This trip is more than a consultation, more than a goodwill visit. It is an act of faith, faith in your country, in your leaders, faith in the capacity of two great neighbors to meet their common problems, and faith in the cause of freedom in which we are so intimately associated.
President Kennedy wins a warm response from Parliament and from the people of Canada. Mrs. Kennedy and Mrs. Diefenbaker leave Parliament together. The First Lady of the United States has been a popular guest. As for Mr. Kennedy and Mr. Diefenbaker, for Canada and the United States, they have expressed their increasing interest in inter-American affairs and in the strength and unity of NATO. They reaffirmed their ideals to banish the scourge of war, to defend and enlarge the area of freedom, to assist peoples less privileged than their own, aims which they declare they will jointly and steadfastly pursue.